Hi, it's Richard from the Homeschool Freedom Club, and today I've got Lucy Clowes with me today, and this is another one of the interviews that I'm doing in the series of how to home educate and earn an income. So welcome, Lucy. Thanks ever so much for coming and talking to me today.
Oh, thank you so much for asking me. It's so lovely to be here. Love what
Well,
you're doing.
oh, thank you very much. First of all, let's just find out a little bit more about you and about your family and your background. If you sort of just say a few words on that, would be great. Thank you.
Yeah, so I've got two daughters, growing up now, 14 and 12. And alongside my husband, we home educate them. We've not always sort of had this kind of alternative kind of lifestyle. I used to be at school, I used to be in a 9 to 5, and I think it was the shock of COVID and questioning, like a lot of people did, my life and what we were doing that led me to sort of self development and breaking out of those systems and to where we are now in a nutshell.
I think COVID was a massive wake up call for a lot of people. It certainly was for us because our kid, my son, he was in school prior to that, and my oldest has been all through the school system. So it definitely sort of shook the world a bit, didn't it? So you mentioned before you've had some businesses, and I'm just sort of curious to find out about sort of pre-COVID what you used to do and how your life was.
Yeah, so I mean, prior to 2014, so that's going back a while, myself and my husband were both in 9 to 5s. My children, well, my eldest was just about to go to a school, and we were very much just regular family. It was actually my husband who sort of was becoming quite disillusioned with the whole system, not seeing the children, wondering what it was all about. And I'm always up for a challenge, if I'm honest. And he just sort of said to me, "Look, I'm really miserable. Like, there's this pub down the road that's for sale, and it's a really good pub, but it's been sat empty for 3 years. It was food led, so we thought it had a bit of potential. We'd never done anything like it in the past, but we, very long story short, quit both our jobs and went for it, brought it and went for it."
Wow. That's a heck of a jump to take. And had you been like you've not been in the hospitality industry or anything like that before, or
So I'd done bar work when I was at uni. I was very much like, but do you know what? We we just believed we knew what we liked when we went and ate out. Like when we
yeah,
went into a restaurant, we knew that we liked to be acknowledged and good service, and we wanted to create somewhere that people enjoyed working, but was fun to eat in, and good standards, local food, all this good stuff. But more than anything, we wanted challenge. We wanted something that was different in our lives. We were like craving change almost. Like, was this going to be it for the rest of our life? We were just going to
yeah.
stay in these jobs and then retire, and then what? It was like, let's do something together. And we kind of never looked back, and it just worked. It was incredible. And we went from like three chefs to six full-time chefs
Wow.
in 6 years, and we were absolutely flying. And then COVID came,
Yeah,
and then we reassessed our life again.
yeah. But I mean, that's. I mean, running a pub though, it's hard work. I imagine. It looks incredibly hard work. I mean, we had a little just where I used to live in Somerset. We had in our village, we had a pub, and the guys they worked so hard. It was a couple that ran that, and it just there never seemed to be any real time off. But how was that? How did you find that?
um, it was different. It was full on. It was absolutely a lifestyle. So
Yeah,
it's this whole thing of you don't go out, people come to you. But it
yeah,
kind of, I mean, the one thing that I was really concerned about was that my children were really young. Our children, sorry, were really young. So they were 3 and 1 when we got the
yeah.
pub. Um, but do you know what? That made it easier. Like having a pub now with teenagers would be a whole other kettle of fish, not just the alcohol side.
Yeah,
They kind of like sort of went to bed, and they were good
yeah,
girls really, and we were blessed. But I think because we were joined together, but it sounds almost all ego, but it wasn't that. It was just there's no room for doubt, like this is going to work.
Yeah.
We both knew, we just both had this thing that we were just going to go for it, it was going to work. And it was hard work, but we got a really good team in. We treated everyone, I hope, they'd all agree, with respect. And like, we could have time off, eventually.
Yeah.
But it was what we put everything into. And I think just taking the risk in trying to better our lives really paid off.
Yes. Yeah. Absolutely. I think it always does when you invest in yourself. Then
Mm.
because you think you spend all those hours sort of in a 9 to 5 working for the man, and you're basically building someone else's dreams, aren't you? At the end of the day,
Mm-hmm.
not yours. So I'm all for I'm all for people going off and starting their own businesses and doing their own thing. So COVID hit, and then what happened? Because it was a really rough time for the hospitality industry. I mean, effectively that's the industry I was in. That's what cost me my business. So
Mm.
what happened with you guys?
So just before COVID came, we were kind of at the point where, because we lived in the pub as well, and the children
Yeah,
were getting older, so we were at the point where we were ready to move out and kind of get a manager in, because we'd built it up to be this sort of self-functioning machine,
yeah,
so that we kind of oversaw what was going on. Um, and then COVID came, and my personal opinion on COVID was, this is not all that it seems.
yeah,
And to implement all these changes,
hmm
like the one way system and all this kind of thing,
yeah,
that just really didn't sit very well with me. I found quite, I just couldn't do it basically. And so I think this is where, like, when you act with integrity, things
yeah,
eventually pay off, because we now we decided to step down basically, and we got someone in to run the pub, and we moved out. We moved into
yeah,
a static caravan. It was like, let's go. We're not doing this. It was
yeah,
all very, very quick. But it was the best thing, because we've been in this really intense like atmosphere for however many years that was, like 7 years. And just to step, it was like we just knew we got to follow our heart rather than like do things that really didn't agree with us.
yeah,
And now what happened over the years was that that person then decided to run the business. So we closed ours down, and it's their business. And now we get a nice
okay,
rental income off the lease.
yeah, yeah, okay, well, fantastic. So it basically all turned out for the best,
It
really.
all turned out for the best, yeah. And I think if we that's I think like that's one of the real takeaways is, you know, trusting. Like, everyone said we were mad when we brought the pub.
Yeah,
Everyone said we were mad when we got the manager in.
yeah,
Everyone said we were totally mad when we closed the business down to allow them to open theirs. But at
yeah,
all points we were like, but we've just got to do this. Like, we've got to
yeah,
follow. We've always followed our guts,
yeah,
and let's just see what happens. And it's always, touch wood, like always, there's always been difficulties and stuff, but ultimately, it's not always been a bed of roses, but ultimately we've got where we hoped to be.
I think that's a very underrated thing, is trusting your gut. So many people don't, and whenever I've ignored it, it's led me into trouble. So
Mm.
it's it's such a valuable thing to actually be cognizant of that, and just be aware, and to act on it as well. So prior to 2020, were you home educating then, or did that come out of COVID as well?
No, so yeah, the kids were in school. So my eldest had a few difficulties in school, but I was trying to work with the school system,
Yeah,
and being so busy, sort of in my day job, in the business, I didn't really see that. I didn't see the option for the home education. It
yeah,
was only when I allowed myself, when we had to sort of step back and reevaluate, like a lot
yeah,
of people did, I think,
yeah,
that I thought, why are they in school? Like, well, she's not happy,
yeah,
you know, she's stressed, she's coming home, she's telling me this, she's telling me that. Like, let's just take her out. And then we've taken one out. I thought, well, to be quite honest, I may as well take my younger one out as well. And
yeah,
let's just live a bit. Like, it
yeah,
all tied in with the stepping away from the pub, and let's just see what happens. And it was very much a week at a time, or month at a time,
yeah.
and then it's sort of year at a time each school year. Like, let's see. But it was the best thing. It was,
Yeah.
yeah, it
No,
was brilliant.
I completely agree. I mean, it was COVID that forced us to kind of reevaluate. I mean, my son had only been in school for 2 terms anyway at that point. He was only 4. And he wasn't happy either, honestly, and we could see he wasn't happy. And it was just like you say, it was just that time to step back and just reevaluate everything in your life. And actually, I realised in the end it was actually a blessing that my business went because it meant I could focus on my family more, which I hadn't been doing because I was so busy flying off around the world doing stuff that I was just never at home, you know. So it was a real blessing in disguise, COVID, I think. I know for a lot of people it was a difficult time and people did lose family members and what have you. But I'm with you, it wasn't all that it seemed, to say the very least. And, you know, it's, I think once you take your kids out of the school system, it and you question why they were in there to start with, and when you start to question that system, you start questioning all the other systems, don't you? As well, it really it's like a snowball effect. I think it was. I mean, it was for me anyway. It was like a real sort of wake up moment, quite honestly. And once we got the kids at home and we'd seen, well, actually, this is pretty easy, honestly, you know, and you trust them to learn as well. You trust them just to teach themselves because you know we don't teach them to walk or talk; they do that themselves. So why can't they pick up other stuff on their own as well? And it's been absolutely sort of magical. I have to say, it's been the best thing we ever did.
Yeah, I totally am with you on that. I think one of the most sort of common questions that I get asked is, "Oh, I
Yeah,
couldn't teach my children," or statements, you know, "Oh, there's no way," and I'm like, I don't recreate school at home. Like,
yeah.
yes, we have boundaries. Yes, we and it's all been a learning like curve. You know, I'm
Oh
not
God, yeah,
a year ago, like I probably wouldn't have said this. You know, every day is, you know, we evolve and we evolve as the children get older and different challenges and lessons come up. You know, and but it's I think one of the things was when I was looking at the work that was being sent home during COVID, I was
yeah,
like,
yeah, yeah.
my God, like
Yeah,
this is just a tick box, and then you take them out and you realize that you don't get these highs and lows. Like my children used to come home and they'd be feral, like they'd just be
yeah,
horrible because they've been so good and just so contained for such a long
yeah,
time, especially my youngest, and like all that just calmed down. And
yeah,
you know, yes, of course she still has moments now, you know, but everything in the house changed. And I don't know, we became this like unit where
yeah,
just being together, like not all the time, obviously, because again, it's always about balance and very much about balance, but just has been like the most wonderful thing over the last 4 years. And just to spend that time with them and to really
yeah,
know them, like, and know them, not know them when they come home stressed or when they're in a rush in the morning. And,
yeah,
you know, because that was one thing, like 9 to 5 did not suit me. And to be honest, I don't think sort of 9 to 3 sort of suited the children because we were always that late family.
yes, yeah,
I like we were always the ones rushing. There was always something getting out the door. And
yeah.
I feel like now they can just be a bit more of who they are and understand who they are as
Absolutely.
well as myself and then my husband.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's a real luxury, isn't it? That time, just time at the end of the day. And I'm completely with you. I mean, my little boy, he would get in the car and just scream on the way home sometimes from school, you know, and just letting everything out. And you've got to question a system that does that to kids, honestly. And and I think you're right, because I've got an older daughter who's 21 who I have a fantastic relationship with. She's at university in the UK. But I have a different relationship with my 2 youngest because I'm with them all the time, especially you know the last 4 years or so. And it's you're a much closer kind of family unit. And you're right, you know, yeah, they're both quite emotional kids. They're both quite highly sensitive. So you do get those days with the ups and downs, but it's nowhere near as extreme as it used to be.
Mm. Yeah, definitely. And I think, like you say, you do start questioning, you know, what what are they learning at school that's really going to benefit them? You
Yeah,
know, I definitely agree that children need to be stimulated and they need to get curious and that needs to be cultivated and all this kind of stuff. But it is about cultivating that and the question and the curiosity rather than sort of the squashing down that can happen in schools. And like you say, the more far removed you are from something, the more you can see it as a whole, and you kind of realize that school absolutely, I think, does suit some people, but it absolutely doesn't suit others. And it's
Yeah.
having the choice. I think that's really important, that you give yourself the choice, and you realize that there is a choice to not send your children there.
Yeah, and I think that's what a lot of people actually don't realise, is that actually home education is the default. Your child's not in the system until you register them for a school. They're not even expected to be there. You know, I didn't know that. I had no clue, quite frankly, until
Yeah.
a couple of years ago, 2, 3 years ago. So, and it's very well kind of hidden from us, I think, for a reason. But I think there's so many more families have started homemade over the last 4 years. I mean, it's incredible. I think in the States they're saying it went from something like 2 to 5 million, or some 3 to 5 million
Wow.
families over that period. And so certainly in the UK, I mean, when you see sort of the homemade groups there, and it's growing, you know. So
I was so surprised. I sort of, again, if people ask me, I sort of explain it as like this underground world that you
yeah,
never hear of in any media, anything. Like there's never a homeschool family on any common TV program, for a reason, obviously,
yeah,
because they don't want you to know about it. But you go on Facebook, and the amount of home educators
yeah,
that are there is so like mind blowing. It's wonderful that there's so many communities of people out there who are, for all different various reasons, it's not all the same reason, but who
yeah,
are choosing to do things a different way. And I think that's kind of my message, I suppose, that it is possible.
yeah,
Everything in my journey, from choosing to do the pub to choosing to step back to taking those risks, but realizing that there is a different way to what society, the mainstream sort of tell you, like, do your 9 to 5, stay in work, retire.
hmm,
It's like there is
yeah.
alternatives.
Yeah, no, there are. There's so many. And actually, what I wanted to talk to you about now was like, so you're no longer, you're just getting income from the pub, from the leasing. So what are you doing now? Are you sort of full time with your daughters? Have you got sort of, have you started another business? What are you up to?
Yeah, so I spent like the first few years just sort of solely being with the children, and kind of getting curious about what home educators did, to be honest, for income streams. um, so we kind of, well, I kind of went on this whole like journey of affiliation marketing and all these kinds of things that people do on social media. But what I discovered more than anything is that when you're doing anything like this, it's it's a journey of inner work and inner belief, that, just to put it like in layman's sense, that you're worthy of having that lifestyle,
Yes.
really.
Yeah.
It's kind of like, oh no, I could never make money doing that, or I could never do this. And it's like, you can, but it's all about belief, and it's about realizing that these opportunities are there for the taking.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
Exactly.
so what I've started to do just very recently is sort of just start. I've got like ideas, and I've got lots of things in the pan about podcasts and all this kind of stuff. But I just set up a page where I'm just sort of sharing my journey and my takes on what I've learned over the last 4 years. I've just finished in a coaching uh, coaching course that I did with Jason Christoph,
Oh yeah.
called
Yeah.
Freedom from Self Sabotage.
Yeah.
Been really, really helpful in helping me with my sabotaging sort of, behaviors, obviously, because we all have them.
Yeah.
And yeah,
Absolutely.
just trying to better myself and let that filter down to the children, and yeah, just sort of empower us as a family to achieve more, I suppose, and being able to dream and fulfill those dreams.
No, and that's so important. And I think you're so much more likely to be able to do that outside. I mean, you called it the 9 to 5 trap in them when we were chatting the other day, and it absolutely is. And I always say, and it's quite a while I'm saying that a salary is the bribe you're given to forget your dreams, really. And
Mm-hmm.
it's so true. It really is. You're stuck in this system, and you don't have the time. I think what COVID did was it gave people the luxury of time again to be able just to look around and actually think, do you know what, there's more to life than actually going, getting on the train every morning, going to work in wherever, coming back at, after sort of 12, 14 hours out the door with commuting times, and not seeing your family. I mean, I did that for years. I worked in London, and my oldest, when she was little, I'd see her maybe for half an hour in the evening during the week if I was lucky, if she wasn't already in bed. I was out at 7 in the morning. I was back home 7, 8 o'clock at night, and it's not a life, honestly. And it's literally you're working for the weekends, and that's it. And then eventually, you hope you stay alive long enough to enjoy a pension that you can't live on anyway. And so, it is a complete trap. It is a total and utter trap. And I think you were talking again about people sort of our age. I remember sort of Gen X. I was born in 1971, and not being familiar with social media and being sort of consumers of social media rather than using it to create. And I thought actually that was a really interesting thing to say.
Yeah, yeah, definitely, because I feel like we're all a bit, well, so just to go back a bit, I was doing like a inner work kind of thing, and this woman talked a lot about creating rather than consuming. If you're going to go on social media, create on it. Stop sitting there and scrolling and comparing your life and wishing this was you and da da da. And it's like,
Yeah.
this is the perfect opportunity, which we all do. I've done it, but it's the perfect opportunity to get on there and get creative, and you can do it whilst in your 9 to 5. Like I know, like I've been there. My husband was there. He was the same. He never saw the kids, and it's very time consuming. But if you've got the time to scroll, you've got the time to create.
Yeah.
And there are people out there who are killing it on social media because so many other people are consuming.
Yeah.
So it's such an opportunity to, whatever it may be, there's so many free courses out there on YouTube and Instagram and Facebook, and just start getting a bit curious about what it is that you think your message might be and what you might like to sell or, get involved in. There are so many streams of revenue out there to be made on social media or podcasts, and it's kind of like we grew up without the internet, didn't we? And it's kind of the devil's work sometimes, but it's there, so we may as well use it. We may as well use it for our advantage because it isn't going to go away.
No. And in fact, I mean, the internet's been a massive godsend. I think so communicate more easily, and I just look at the opportunity. I mean, my son, the age he's 9 in about a week's time. So I was 9 in 1980, and he's creating videos about Minecraft and then putting them on his YouTube channel, and he's doing all the editing. And it's like, I look at that. When I was 9, what was I doing? I wasn't doing that. And it's just the opportunities really are there, and I think it's great to get kids. Again, I'm not a huge fan of screen time, but screens are there; they're going to use them. So, you might as well embrace it, and as you say, just embrace the technology like AI that's coming along. Use it, use it to your benefit, rather than sitting and being swamped by it.
I know the AI because it fills me with a little bit of dread. But then me and my friend were talking about this actually. And I'm really sorry, I can't remember the website. I can let you know and you can say about it afterwards, because there's this page that you can put in and like mention something. So like, I don't know, entrepreneurship. And then Google will tell you the most 10 or like 100 questions that are asked that are typed into Google around that. So it can help you, like, what are people wanting to know about this, and all this kind of stuff. And that's AI. And we were like, oh, we hate AI, but it's so handy. Like, let's just use it to our advantage. And I think, regarding children and social media and screen time, I think as long as you're, again, aware of it and aware of sort of not the dangers, but,
with the pitfalls.
It is a great tool, and it's the way of the future, isn't it? And, the fact that your son's on there and he's doing YouTube videos and he's creating, it's fantastic, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, thankfully he's too young to consume too much at the moment. But but no, it is. It's amazing, and just this is what I'm saying. There's so many opportunities now to step out of the 9 to 5, and yet, when I write about this, I always get people saying, "Oh, yeah, but where are we going to be without people to do work in shops and do this, that, and the other?" I'm like, yeah, but there's going to be people who will always want to do that. They're not interested in another life. But for those people that are interested in stepping out of that and are feeling like you were with your husband 10 years ago, just there's got to be more. then the opportunities are there. Just go and do it.
Yeah, I've come up with a few people commenting about 9 to 5, and
Yeah,
we'd love to be able to work 9 to 5. And I'm like, but that's the thing, we are all different. Some people are going to want that,
yeah.
like routine and stability. But for me, I know that God, it was awful. Like, I remember crying on the way to work, which sounds so ridiculous. Like, I'm a grown adult, but I was like, I can't do this anymore. And literally, it
Yeah.
was like, oh my gosh. And just, if you've got that within you, like, it's knowing that there is other ways. Like, don't feel that you're stuck. I felt stuck.
Yeah.
And it is, it's okay to want more. It's okay. And if you've got that desire, like,
Well,
follow it.
and the great thing is we can pass that on to our kids. I mean, your daughter's doing our Young Entrepreneurs course, and that's opening her eyes to the possibilities of what is out there as well. And obviously, she's seen you run a business, and that's you're saying that's what's given her idea for what she wants to do as a business when she's older. But I think it's great for kids to see that there's more than just you go to school, you go to university, you get a job, and there's this I just remember sort of even when I was in my teens, looking ahead and thinking, is this like life? You're just railroaded down this one particular track until retirement, and that's the next time you get to be free.
Yeah.
Even then, it made no sense to me.
Oh, I know. Like, literally, that was the only reason I went to university, because I just didn't want to get a job yet. Like, the thought of going into a job and doing 9 to 5 at the age of 18 for the rest of my life was almost soul destroying. So I was like, well, if I do this, and then went to uni, and I was like, well, if I travel, and it was almost
Yeah,
putting off. And I wish someone had said to me then, be an entrepreneur. Like, I didn't even consider it as an option then. Like, it didn't enter my mind. But so teaching our children that this is a possibility at a young age is quite powerful, because I just never ever came out the school system, did my A levels,
yeah,
never anything was ever mentioned to me. Just have your own business. Like, what do
yeah.
you want to be? You don't have to work for someone.
Yeah, it was. I know because you had like a careers counsellor, didn't you, at
Yeah.
school? And they're like, well, you could do this or you could do this, and that's just so boring.
Yeah. And I was such like I was almost like a good girl. So I never sort of, it took me a long time to be able to think outside the box.
Yeah,
And that's where it's been like a road of sort of self-improvement and inner work, and just believing that it is possible. And there are so many people out there now who are sort of leading the road, and there's so much that you can, like I say, you can find online to help you sort of break free.
break free with Lucy, preferably. So what we'll do, we'll put some links to your page when we put the interview out. But have you got any sort of words of encouragement to people out there that are sort of thinking about taking the step either into home education or stepping outside of their 9 to 5? What would you say to them?
Oh, so home education, I would say, I think that the main takeaway for me when people have mentioned things to me would just be, it's not about creating school at home. You're not suddenly putting a hat on as the teacher. You're their parent. You're sort of guiding them with boundaries, firm boundaries in place. But it's about allowing your child to be who they are, and cultivating that really. And there's so many groups on Facebook and things, like, go out and start asking questions, and maybe meet up with a group and see that we're quite normal, and most of us.
Yeah.
And just about 9 to 5, like, if you feel that you're here for something more, like, follow that up. Like, take the time, invest in yourself. And don't life goes in such a quick blink of the eye. Like, live your best life, and if you're thinking there's more, then go for it. I don't know if that's helpful. I'd say go for it.
No, I'm absolutely with you on there. Sometimes we have this tendency to overthink stuff, don't we? And sometimes actually you just shouldn't. You should just literally listen to that little voice, listen to your gut, and say, okay, no, I'm going to do this, and step out and break free. So thank you ever so much. It's been a real joy talking to you today, Lucy. Thanks for coming on. I really appreciate it.
Oh, thank you so much for having me here. Really love what you're doing.
Thank you. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.